Welcome, everyone, and good morning to this exciting panel topic. I'm going to start off by introducing each one of our panelists, and then we'll start really getting into the details of our conversation. First of all, let me introduce His Excellency Hussein Al-Hamadi, Minister of Education of the UAE. He was appointed minister in 2014. Prior to this, he worked for 14 years in technical and vocational education, and he also serves as the chairman of the board of trustees of the Hamdan bin Rashid Foundation for Excellence in Educational Performance. We also have Sari Nusseibeh, a former president of Al Quds University from 1995 to 2014. He earned his PhD in Islamic philosophy from Harvard and began his academic career at Birsite University. Joining us as well, we have Silvia Serrano, Vice Chancellor of the Sorbonne University in Abu Dhabi. She was appointed in 2020. She is a political scientist and a specialist in Soviet and post-Soviet studies. And last but not least, we have Fadl Khoury, President of the American University of Beirut. He's a professor of medicine at the AUB and took on the role of president in 2015. Prior to joining AUB, he was a professor and department chair at Emory University in the US. So welcome, all of you. Really, really happy to have you here. And as I said, the topic of our panel in a nutshell really is how our institutions thrive on its global connections and how do these global connections enhance the impact in our local context. And this subject is really dear to my heart. In my previous role as a university president, this was at the core, at the center stage of the university strategy. And it clearly can become embedded and branch out and permeate an institution at all different levels for all stakeholders and for all of our critical initiatives to become really active participants globally and to impact our local context. This can range from the academics and the curricular aspects to the student experience, to the faculty development and enhancement, to the research collaborations, and to being inserted into global networks. At the same time, we have the role of public policy to strengthen and facilitate the role that our institutions play, their interconnectedness, and their visibility on the global scale. So let me start out by asking this first question that will be common to all of the panelists on what are the main vision, priority, and challenges that you have with respect to establishing global connections. I'd like to start off with the minister in reference to something that he mentioned in the opening remarks yesterday about the ambition and the enablers that the UAE has. So please, Minister, could you go first, please?
Thank you very much for hosting me. As you are aware, the UAE has a well plan, and the UAE objective has an overarching goal to develop innovative education system that support knowledge and a global competitiveness in UAE. We want to position UAE as a leader and attractive hub for higher education and to become the hub of the region. We have a policy to facilitate students coming to UAE and study in the UAE. UAE have an excellent infrastructure from world-class university residing in UAE. We have high-quality living standard in UAE, and we have seen during the COVID-19 how the UAE handled incredibly the pandemics, and it was positively being seen by the world. And yesterday it was announced Abu Dhabi as the best city in the world that handled this pandemic. We would like to give the best talented student, the best researcher, the best instructor to come in the UAE. We would like to support our university to open to the world globally, connecting it. And we have NYU Abu Dhabi is an excellent example of how this is happening in the ground and how we are succeeding in that. Our new policies and initiative all toward the connectivity and connecting our higher education system with the global higher education system. We are very blessed. We have very, very good relationship, very strong and positive, and we work toward global peace, global cooperation. And the best place to harness this is through education institution, where you can amplify the student exchange, the culture exchange, the interaction, and we together can put an example. And UAE has 200 nationality living in UAE with a very good example to be followed. And our university will set also in the future a good example for an excellent hub for higher education. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let me continue on with asking Fadlo this question, bringing it down from the country level to your specific university context. Could you go ahead, please?
Okay, sure. I've unmuted myself now so you can hear me. So thank you very much, Marta. Let me talk a little bit about AUB. So AUB is the oldest, and I think it's hard to argue, the finest university in the Arab world. It's the top-ranked university in the MENA region for employability, really the only one in the top 50 in the world. Ranked second in the world, et cetera, et cetera. But more importantly, it's a university that's very mission-focused. The founder, Daniel Bliss, said that we are not anxious to appear great, but we're anxious to lay the foundations upon which greatness can be built. And you can see the increasing quality of universities in the MENA region, whether it's universities that started from abroad, that basically inculcated themselves in the regions, or our partnerships. So one of the ways AUB makes an impact is by being international. So as of the time when the pandemic hit, about a quarter of our students were international, with state-of-the-art labs and classrooms and highly cited researchers, more than 140 degree programs. And given the economic meltdown in Lebanon and our determination to make a social impact, we've had to double our financial aid over the last 6 years, from $46 million to $90 million a year. What does that mean? Well, what it means is that the university and other universities like it have to see what they can do to create great social impact and to create opportunities for partnerships. The partnerships can be local, such as ours with the Saint Joseph University, the second oldest university. We have partnerships with Sari's alma mater, with Birzeit, among others. We have regional partnerships that we're exploring, including in the UAE. And we have international partnerships, not only with universities such as Johns Hopkins, Michigan, Harvard, and others, but we also have partnerships with foundations, and they're different types of partnerships. One of the ones I'd like to highlight with the MasterCard Foundation, which opened up the continent of Africa to us. Now we've seen 4 of our star students go back and develop a company in Uganda that brings the buyers and the farmers in direct proximity. So that's what I'm talking about, social impact. Social impact can be a joint PhD program, such as we have some of the top French universities, or it can be creating the scholars and the entrepreneurs and the leaders of tomorrow. And that's what I think is the focus of our talk today. So I'll stop there and say thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So let me bring this back to Abu Dhabi with Sylvia. Sylvia, would you like to give your perspective on this question?
Thank you very much, Marta. Thank you very much for the organizer and for inviting me. Well, actually, Sorbonne University Abu Dhabi was established in 2006, thanks to an international agreement between the Abu Dhabi government and Sorbonne University in Paris. Therefore, we are privileged to be globally connected since the very foundation of our institution, and due to the links with Sorbonne University in Paris. Our faculty members are professors from Paris. I am a professor at Sorbonne University Paris. Most of our faculty members have high profile, high exposure to global trends and research worldwide. So we are very much a global institution. So our vision is to bring the renowned academic excellence and worldwide recognition of Francophone education to Abu Dhabi and to adapt it to the UAE national context. Sorbonne University in Paris has its own academic culture, shaped by centuries-old legacy and adaptation to the challenges of modernity. And this culture takes its roots in humanistic tradition characterized by a mutual fertilization of research and teaching. And this is this tradition we want to bring to Abu Dhabi. We want our students to benefit from this rich heritage of intellectual excellence and innovation. And we want to equip them with knowledge, skills, and competences to face the challenges of the 21st century. And also, and this is very important for us, we want to enhance their creativity and their critical thinking. We think that without critical thinking, they will not be able to meet these challenges. So we want them to be informed and engaged citizens, open-minded leaders for the benefit of the whole society. And for that, we believe that we can capitalize in the legacy of Sorbonne universities in humanities and social science. Finally, I would say that our students come from all over the world. They come from very different backgrounds. They are they are exposed in Abu Dhabi, in this wonderful cosmopolitan city, to different cultures. Our aim is to promote the dialogue of cultures, which is in line with our motto, a bridge between civilizations. Yes, after we've been here for 15 years, we have developed more than 25 undergraduate, postgraduate programs in French and in English. During the first decade, let's say, we operated under the traditional Sorbonne model, which is mainly focused on the humanities. But we operate in a country that is developing extremely fast. And we realized that we have to open programs in other fields in order to support this development. So we have expanded our offer with new programs in law, in economics, in the science. And these new programs are aimed to meet the needs of the Emirati society and the job market. So we believe that we are pursuing our role of being a beacon of knowledge, not only in the UAE, but in all the MENA region. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. Let me continue on with Sari. I'd like to very much hear your thoughts on this question.
Well, thank you very much, Martha. Thank you all for including me in this conversation, and my special greetings to His Excellency the Minister as well from Jerusalem. So let me just say a few words first about Palestinian universities in general, because you may not know, but there's sort of a new development really just after the '67 war. Before the '67 war, we had one specific institution, which later came to be called Birzeit University, which was in Birzeit, and it was a college, a junior college. And students who went and spent a couple of years there would then ideally go on to the AUB, to Fazl's university. And there was a very good connection there. But after '67, when the connections were terminated, so to speak, so people within the West Bank and Gaza began to develop their own higher education institutions. Birzeit in particular developed itself into a university, but at the time very much in cooperation with the AUB. And we had many of the professors who were teaching at that university were professors from the AUB or students who had graduated from the AUB. Now, later on, other universities evolved, and included was the university I became later president of, which is Al-Quds University. Now, to tell you the truth, our situation is totally, of course, different from the situation of the different places and universities we've heard people speak about so far. The special condition, of course, was the condition, and has been and continues to be the condition of occupation. And therefore, the challenges have been really multi-varied. I mean, there were not just one kind of challenge that universities had, there were different challenges. Let me just focus specifically on my own experience, and I think it's the experience of the universities in general at Al-Quds University, where the major problem for us as an institution that did not have any of its own resources, whether financial or anything, and that is not supported by a government or an authority in any major way. The university has had to actually to seek relations with the outside world in order to build up its capacity. And by building up its capacity, I mean, on the one hand, building up the capacity in its human resources. So we're talking here about personnel, and we're talking about personnel in different places, like in the administration, as well as professors, teachers, people who would be able to teach, but also, thirdly, people who can do research. And that's one level. And the second level in building up this capacity was to actually build up the space. And alongside the space, the laboratories and the research facilities that are required. Now, it's been very hard, in fact, given the, as I say, very, very limited resources to build this up. And therefore, we were able at Al Quds University to develop our capacity in the way that I mentioned, exactly and precisely through our cooperations that we established with universities and governments in the larger global context. And I would mention in this instance our seeking out to have relations with universities in the United States, in Europe, and in other places. But not only universities, we also sought out the help of governments. And let me mention here again, for instance, once again, Abu Dhabi. And I want to say thank you to Abu Dhabi because, in fact, they helped us over the years, as they did in other institutions in the West Bank, Gaza, in order to develop the capacity that I'm speaking about. It's been very hard to bring back or to appoint professors of high quality. It's been very hard to send people abroad in order to study at good institutions in order for them to come back. Many of them in whom we have invested, in fact, have, especially for instance in medicine, have in fact gone away after having graduated but not come back. Because coming back means a lot of commitment, not only to an academic life, but to the special life that we lead under occupation. Now, nonetheless, we've been able to develop in our own university, in the university I was president of Al Quds. I remember when I started working in it, it was a very small place. It had maybe 1,000 students. By the time I left it, it had more than 13,000 students, more than 100 different programs. We developed programs, different colleges. We developed medicine, law, engineering, IT, as well as the social and the humanities sciences. And in the context of building up relations with the outside world, we're very also happy to have established a special relationship with Bard College in the United States, with whom we in fact established at our campus, in our campus, a kind of liberal arts college nested within our campus. And that has had a lot of interesting impact, social impact, immediate impact on our students and on our faculty as well. And I can speak a lot about that later if you wish. One last thing I want to say is the following, that just after the Oslo process, the signing of the agreement between the Palestinians and the Israelis, there was an opportunity, a window of opportunity, which we used at Al Quds University in order, in fact, to develop also relations with Israeli academic institutions. And the hope was great for us to be able to, proceed with this alongside the process of the peace agreements and so on. This went on till about 2009, which was the year when Israel, the first time that Israel went into Gaza with its army. I don't know if you remember any of that. But the faculty and the people at the university then decided that's it. We want to suspend all kind of academic cooperation and research projects that we were doing. But until then, that's to say, for several years after the initiation of Oslo and up till the incursion into Gaza, in fact, we were able to create a lot of capacity building and research through projects of research between Palestinian and Israeli academics at Israeli institutions. And now the situation, and it has not been actually like this for some time. I'll stop here. Maybe I can talk a little bit more about all of these exciting things happening here later.
Yes. Thank you so much. Indeed, you've covered a lot of many different topics, but let me pivot for a moment back to the minister. And I'd like to follow up a little bit more. You've seen Abu Dhabi, the UAE, but Abu Dhabi developed, incredibly over the past few decades, and the institutions of higher education positioning themselves more and more. You have had several different strategies that have been successful. We have a few examples of institutions with Sylvia and, of course, NYU Abu Dhabi. But let me ask you right now, there still exist some gaps, clearly. And what are the strategies that you're trying to implement to kind of reach these gaps moving forward?
In the UAE, honestly, we look at challenges as opportunities where we can capitalize on it and make a creative solution to provide a better quality services. And if you look at COVID-19, when it hit the globe, it has impacted all countries and all sectors. Here in the UAE, all sectors reacted positively, and higher education was one of them. We could manage to go into a distance learning very quickly, and quality service was provided. Then some of the university, they went into blended learning, and we moved to access to the labs and research. So we are in the recovery mode. So this shows how strong and resilient the UAE system. The other thing is, honestly, at this stage now of UAE, we are at the beginning of the next 50 years plan. And we have been working in a lot of strategies, how to support the higher education system in UAE and how to be a global hub, as I stated previously. We have worked in a holistic approach now in the education system UAE. We start from early childhood with a huge reform. Then we went to the general education, and we did a big transformation in the accreditation systems and classification of university and support the research in the higher education. We encourage university to do dual degree, joint programs, joint research cooperation. So we see the future, honestly, is to benefit of the lesson we learned from COVID-19. There is a lot of positive lesson has been learned from COVID-19, and I'm sure the education and higher education, especially after COVID-19, will not go back to what it used to be. So from now, our universities are working very hard to adapt and to learn and implement this lesson to the future. As a Ministry of Education, we are changing and adapting our policy to make it viable for them to move in that direction. Plus, we are working, as you are aware, in UAE, there is Arabic language and English language. All our students are capable in that. But we also started introducing a third language option, Chinese, French, especially when we have Abu Dhabi Sorbonne here in UAE. And we're also working on the Spanish and other languages. We would like to be connected between East and West and bring the best talent to UAE and really work very hard in new innovative technologies in area of aligned with our centennial plan, which is the 2071. And thank God in the UAE, we don't have any issue with the budget because the government see education as a priority, and each fiscal year it has been allocated the biggest budget and support. And we look forward for positive international cooperation and looking forward for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. So let me go to Fadlo and follow up a little bit more with some of the points that have been showing up in the different panels yesterday and today. Just the previous panel was, stressing the role of universities to develop the common global shared values, the role of universities in the global scientific enterprise. Tell us a little bit from your perspective in your institution, which are the roles that are critical for you to play aligned with these principles of global science and our common humanity?
Thank you, Marta. So I'm going to tie into something Seti said, which I think he's probably not surprised. So AUB's always been a very values, very mission-oriented university. And for a long while, it was the university that was involved in capacity building, certainly of leaders in the Middle East. And it's a good thing to not be alone. The ties with Birzeit and Quds and other universities have only deepened over time. But just like we can talk about a pre-COVID and pre-67 and post-67 and post-COVID event, the reality is this can't be done by any university alone. And what I'm really talking about here is capacity building. Universities exist for three reasons. Not just to create knowledge, that's one of the things, create knowledge, create entrepreneurship, but to develop a sense of shared human values and to break boundaries that would otherwise politically and otherwise be very difficult to overcome. From my perspective, it's difficult for a top university to avoid any of those three. I suspect all of us agree. We have to help build a set of shared values, even if we disagree about them. We should be able to talk about them. We need to be a hub for creativity, entrepreneurship. We just spun off our first AUB-sponsored company a few weeks ago, a device or a test that can predict cardiovascular disease early, something that means a lot to me since I lost a close friend this morning at 58 after his morning run. And really the idea that we are bridging gaps that bring us together to build capacity. One thing I'm very impressed with what the UAE is doing, they're doing this very seriously. Jordan's also attempting it, is to look at the idea of capacity building. Lebanon may be the country that's had the universities here the longest time, but they've never really looked at capacity building because, as you know, Marta, friends, capacity building is not just about higher education. It's about vocational school. It's about the intentional development of leaders and policies. And these are things that you're seeing are a real problem here. Why? Because you have, as Seri alluded to, this great phenomenon, this terrible tragedy of the Arab youth leaving. And if they spend more than 2 years abroad in a master's or PhD or medical, doctoral or graduate training program, their rate of return is less than 5%. If you accept Saudi Arabia and the Emirates and Kuwait, that's true for all the Arab countries. The other 19 Arab countries suffer from this challenge. So we're asked to do more as a university, as a series of universities, because none of us can do this alone, create the environment, create the capacity, but also beyond that, help create the milieu, the environment for people to return.
Thank you. Yeah, these are some of the very complex challenges to really try to drive forward your ambition and your strategy. So let me come to Sylvia on this. Any strategy that we have will require resources. What are you finding? How are you developing this? And are there any main drawbacks that you really are having a difficulty in overcoming to pursue your strategy?
Thank you very much. Well, when it comes to reserves, we are a public university. Tuition fees do not cover all our expenses, and we rely on endowment, on generous endowment from the Abu Dhabi government. We also count in the private sector. And despite the very difficult year we have overcome, we are very grateful also to our private sponsors. For example, to French sponsor Thales and Total, who funded 2 industrial chairs of excellence in artificial intelligence, and we were able to open, thanks to this support, a wonderful Sorbonne Center for Artificial Intelligence, located both in Paris and in Abu Dhabi with 2 chair of excellence. So this is the kind of thing that we are very much relying on. So I am pretty optimistic that we are, thanks to the support of the Abu Dhabi government, we will be able to meet our goals, our plan as per our strategy. But nevertheless, yes, we are facing some challenges, and I would say that the main challenge at this stage that we are facing is bureaucratic challenges. we are here, as I mentioned before, Sorbonne University was brought to Abu Dhabi because the Emirati leadership wanted to create a strong, dynamic higher education and also to diversify the academic landscape of the UAE. And indeed, the higher education in the UAE has been growing extremely fast. And now there is a new stage, which is the standardization of academic institutions in the UAE. And we understand perfectly that it goes hand in hand with the strengthening of the UAE higher education platform. But concretely, we have been here for 15 years, and now we are facing new requirements, new rules all the time, and we are forced constantly to ask for some exemptions because all these rules and standards they are designed according to the US model, not to the European model, and we are following the European model. So we are facing challenges in terms of accreditation, but also in different fields. And we believe that we are here because diversity was at the center of the concern of the Emirati Authority, and we believe that it is an enrichment for the academic landscape and the academic life, and for the students. We are bringing diversity to Abu Dhabi and including diversity in the academic landscape. So indeed, all we have accomplished so far was thanks to the support of the Abu Dhabi government, and we really need this support because these major roadblocks are hampering us to reaching our goal. But I'm confident that we will be able to overcome these difficulties and to deliver what we are here for in the first place.
Thank you, Sylvia. So yesterday we heard in the World Humanities Report out how critical it is to continue to invest in global networks that are inclusive. Also, Sari, you were in another panel yesterday, and it was mentioned how critical for success in the SDGs collaboration is really, an important element there. There's a question that's coming in from the audience, and I'd like Sari to first answer, but perhaps the others can also contribute. Increasingly, we have seen universities overtly align their mission with achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So what does the panel think about the SDGs, from economic growth to climate action, as a framework for focusing and measuring universities' social and economic impact?
Well, maybe I'll answer or I'll address this issue from a different angle. I think that to go back, if I may, to the initial discussion about the vision or the role of a university. We mentioned, of course, knowledge, and that's very important. Skills, knowledge, professional at every level. We've heard this from His Excellency the Minister, also from Fadlu. But alongside, of course, knowledge, there is the issue of human values and shared human values. And I want to add, thirdly, the issue of what I believe in personally is the importance of the university role in creating or building up, let me call them the responsible or moral citizen. Because, in addition to having shared human values, one has to also, the university is a perfect place to also make sure that what we produce in our societies, which we want to impact, are people that are in fact people who hold moral views. They're not only able in critical thinking or who are intellectuals or who are cultured, but who are actually responsible people who are responsible for the environment that they live in and for the community that they live in. Now, I think that in our case, in the universities here, I'm not sure that we've succeeded so far. And I think much more needs to be done. And I think we haven't really succeeded because of the chaotic world that we live in, partly because of COVID, but also more importantly, because of the political situation. But, you know, I wish as we look forward that our interconnections, our connections, the connections between our universities, whether in the MENA region or wider in the world, will in fact focus on those issues and help the different institutions to actually bring about the kind of human beings we want to have graduated and then becoming part of a productive society in the society that they in fact live. Not sure I answered the question in particular way, but I feel that this is a larger sort of perspective with which to deal with it. The sort of moral value and the responsibility to the environment and to society.
Thank you. Sorry, but I do want to see if the other panelists would like to, respond also to this particular question. Fadla?
Sure. So, I mean, just to build on what Sari is saying, it's not just the ability to develop a shared set of values, it's to understand how to reach those values. You know, Sylvia spoke about the importance of the humanities-based development of students. 3 years ago, my speech to the graduation speech of the students was based on an article I read in The Guardian. It was very much about people learning, using their university experience to try to forge the current battle, which is not one side against another. Really, it's truth against non-truth. Our students should be able to look at data and, irrespective of what's being said on social media or elsewhere, to look at it and see, first of all, is it true? And second, are these facts? And do they support shared human values? Knowledge alone, without morality, without ethics, without the ability to investigate those two, is insufficient for a college education. A college education, graduate education, should aspire to much more, which is what I think we're all saying. And it should be not just about capacity building, not just about the shared values, but about the ability to interrogate those values and interrogate knowledge for its consistency with those values.
Sylvia, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. I just wanted to follow up on Fadla's remark. Actually, I think that I mentioned before that humanities are at the part of the DNA of Sorbonne University. And one of the most thrilling development for us at this stage is, as I mentioned, the development of programs in cutting-edge areas such as artificial intelligence and in the science in general. And we hope to contribute to making Sorbonne University Abu Dhabi a key player in the digital transformation of the region. But at the same time, I think for us, we do not oppose science and humanities. This is exactly the contrary. We continue to build up on our legacy on humanity. And when we expand our programs to the science, we believe that scientists need to be trained in humanities. And that's why, for example, we always try to bridge together humanities and science. And that's why we introduce courses of philosophy, for example, in a new bachelor in math or specialization data science, in order for our students to be able to be skilled and competent in their field, but also to benefit from this legacy of humanities that give them let's say, an open-minded approach to and reflexivity toward their own field. And we also, another way for us to interconnect the science and humanities is also to bring them together. And for example, we are hoping to open a master, just another example, in physics for heritage. And the students who would join this master, they are physicists. They are coming from a science background, but nevertheless, they need to be skilled in the history of art. They need to be educated in humanities, and this is the kind of skills we are enhancing and delivering them to them. So for us, it's really very important. It's at the core of our vision, bringing together science and humanities and not thinking them as opposite, let's say, specialities. No, we are in a world, in a so complicated world, when we need, as you said, a holistic vision that includes liberal arts, humanities, including for educating scientists.
Thank you. But let me insist a little bit on the question, on the original question from the audience, which was really about if we accept as a framework the SDGs for focusing and measuring university societal and economic impact. What are your thoughts on this, very concretely? Who would like to go first? Abdul, yes.
Oh, yes, let me be maybe unpopular but candid. So it's very important to have impact. The SDGs give you social, societal impact, equity, preservation of the environment, and this is at the core of what universities should be about. But it can't be the only thing we pursue, right? I say this from the perspective, the fact that the BBC ranked AUB as one of the 12 most impactful universities in the world. But we are also hubs for knowledge, for creativity. So you have to balance both. Yes, absolutely. We should embrace the impact rankings and the SDG focused approach, certainly for institutions like AUB, which are in the midst of an economic maelstrom and disaster that is Lebanon. It is important for us to play a major role to preserve the environment, to do capacity building, but I would not set aside the knowledge creation, the pure scholar aspect. That's why I think you have to combine these folks and your leaders. I'm very proud to say that our Dean of Arts and Sciences and our Dean of the Maroun Saman Faculty of Engineering, who, by the way, said he is from Birzeit, Alan Shahadi, they're both humanists, they're focused on social impact, but they're great scholars among the elite in their field. That's the very difficult needle that we have to thread in the universities. We have to be great centers of knowledge and excellence and uphold the highest values, including the UN's SDGs.
Great. Anybody else want to say something more? If not, we can move on to another question, which is related to one of the points that you were all making. How can universities in the MENA region play a bigger role in fighting corruption in the countries in which they operate? Who would like to take a stab at that one?
Well, I think maybe, the discussion that we're having, I sort of suspect revolves around some very basic elements. Maybe we haven't really laid them out very clearly to ourselves, but one of them, what I talked about earlier as something called the moral citizen, or the citizen that's responsible, a responsible citizen, is a concept that's, very, very widespread. It covers everything. If you create a person, if you help develop a person who not only is critical, who is not only very skillful in whatever area of knowledge or profession or whatever they are, but also a critical thinker, and so on. But in addition, someone who is, as I call them, a moral, a responsible citizen, then I think, what you will have coming out in society are people who will stand up for their rights, for their self-respect as human beings, who will not allow a situation of corruption to, in fact, if it exists already, to continue existing around them. You have to have are willing to go out and fight the corruption that exists. And the only way that you can do that is to create the moral person inside the university, inside the institution. Also, actually, even right from the beginning, from schools, you have to create those people. Things do not happen just by themselves, and they do not happen just by decree or by law. They happen through education. That's why education is important. That's why universities are very important, to bring about those people. Even something like cheating at school or at universities, cheating, or copy pasting answers, or to get high grades, giving people high grades only because of what you see on the paper. All of this may actually be ways and means to encourage later on cheating and corruption in the state and in the society at large. So one has to nip it at the bud. One has to create the person, the proper kind of person, right from the beginning. And I think this is part of the need that university has to impact its society. Again, not just knowledge, because knowledge by itself, is one thing. What you need is to have people who will create a better future for human beings at every level.
Thank you, Sari. Um,
Can I add
Minister?
something?
Sure,
Yes.
please go ahead.
Thank you for this question. I think it's very important to tackle something like this, because it has a major impact on the society. But if we look at a holistic approach about not only this, but a holistic approach of how we can develop a human being that is world class, well connected to the world, and fully understanding his moral responsibility toward his country and toward the world. And I think when you repeated the question of SDG and their role and their implication, this is part of this issue. So in UAE, for example, we have recently introduced a subject called moral education that starts from grade 1 and goes all the way with the kids until grade 12. And we have trying now very hard to fuse science, humanity, and social study into an interdisciplinary approach that will enable people to have more tools to oversee and study any social cases. But at the end of it, it is where the government has to have an overarching of transparencies, policies, open and transparent reportings. How do you do honestly the audit? I mean, the way audit has been done in the past is very classical model. Audit has to improve and to reach to what's happening now in the globe. Honestly, when you do a project, you have to look at the holistically the project. What is the value of the project? What is the impact of the project? Sometimes you invest money in a project that has no return. So it is not only something small we look at, how we have to have a holistic approach toward this. Plus the university, they have to play the role where in doing case studies, in doing analytics, in doing recommendation of measurement, that something like this will never happen in the future. But it's even in the corporate world, it's happening. So it's not only the government sector, it's the corporate world, and so the global issues, frankly speaking. So how can we help each other to prevent this happening? Because we bleed a lot of financial resources globally because of this in the corporate environment or in the government environment. So I thank you for raising this question. And honestly, the SDG, some people, they see the SDG as a burden. No, the SDG is really is an enabler for university and for education. If you look at all the sector of the SDG, they encourage creativity, innovation, research to solve real-world problems we're going to face in the future. So this is also, we really should capture and we should really focus on and should be part of university KPI and education system KPI, and the government should really be engaged to measure this impact on the system in each country. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Padla.
So, yeah, I'd like to build on something the minister said, which is creating the moral person, which Sadi was really very kind to sort of lead off with. That person arrives at university age 17, 18, 19, sometimes 24. And I think we fool ourselves by underrating how important the K through 12 experience is, and even the early learning opportunities. And in my opinion, people come to university, you can influence them, you can impact them. And certainly we at AUB have generated more leaders in politics and business than almost any university I know of. And certainly in the region, it's not close. But not all of those leaders are perfect. I think Sadi would agree administer a degree, some of those leaders have probably not exercised moral leadership at the highest capacity. One of the problems, though, Marta, is when you start to blame people early in the university experience. I think universities, in pursuing the SDG goals, the moral goals, the goal of developing more moral and forgiving, and I want to emphasize that word, citizenship, is to allow individuals to make mistakes without being castigated and cast outside the academic circle, whether they're mistakes of plagiarism, cheating, or otherwise. These happen. They happen because of an environment created from youth where you are competing for prizes. And the competition through grades and other things, I believe it's time for universities to evaluate whether these learning assessment tools are helpful or harmful in creating the moral citizen, and how we can use the experience we have, feed it back into the early learning and K through 12 experience to try to develop a citizen less amenable to corruption, less amenable to the very tempting things that can present themselves to an extremely intelligent, capable, young or slightly older person who has the tools to take advantage of the system in a bad way. That, I think, is at the core of the values that Seti was talking about.
Yeah, very, I think very pertinent, in fact, and all the contributions that we've heard on this. We do have a couple other questions from the audience that focus on really how do we build this balance in the process of the students coming and developing skills and competencies versus those students being prepared to be global actors with broad transferable skills. Would anyone like to comment on this?
Can I contribute?
Yeah.
Yes, I think what has been asked is a really very smart question, and it's very challenging. If we look only at a 4-year or 3-year in university cannot do magic or miracle during that period. It is the holistic education system has to be the enabler. And what was stated by some of the participants is we have to look at the early childhood, K-12 system, and the university in a holistic approach to produce that caliber of talent and skill that's required. And if we look at the UAE and experience in that, we have done a lot of studies, and we discovered that there is a skill set that we need to invest even in KG1 and KG2 by introducing some of the skills that you nurture over time, and they become over time, slowly, the kids will capture them, and with repetition, you will master them. So we have created sometime recently new subject in the K-12 system, like creative design and innovation, science and technology and innovation. These skills stay with the kids. And then the fusion of social sciences and humanity into these subjects, and doing capstone project and analyzing cases. We go up to like grade 4 in a school system that we task kids at grade 4 to do mini project, which is like similar to a university project, but in a lightened way. So the kids will understand the 360 approach to any problem, analyzing it from our aspect, and present his own report and his own solution. These skills over time, they get mature and they get more skill. And then the concept of long life learning, and the COVID showed us what you can learn online. Honestly, is how can we have the kids or the student of the future is a long life learner, and they should be able to access different platforms to serve their need and their interest. And the skill will evolve and will change. And we are at the start of the 4th industrial revolution. And job, people will find 5, 10, 15 jobs maybe, or some people will do a startup and companies. And as we stated in the Arab world, we have to create companies and businesses and startups to hire people, because the government jobs that are available cannot cope with the number of graduates. I mean, we have to really create a new type of national student, either the local or the resident of the UAE, with the skill set that are evolving, adaptable to the current need and the future need. Thank you very much for giving me the time.
Thank you. So we have just 5 minutes left. I want to come back to our topic. let me come back to our topic that, you know, all of you at the beginning of our session were very clear in really expounding on how global connections were enablers for the development of your institutions and really produced a lot of direct impact for the development of your programs or your main ambitions. So the question is, 30 seconds for each of you to tell us what is exciting right now in what you're developing related to the global connection. What is the most exciting thing you're doing right now? So perhaps we can start with Pablo.
I think one of the most exciting things we're doing right now as part of the global connection is, as I said, post-COVID-19, looking at what a university should deliver in terms of knowledge and values that's no longer didactic, that's not just a student coming to spend 3 years in lecture halls or in labs, but combining that distance learning experience that's become necessary with the experiential opportunities that will become open once the world opens back up. Students creating things like, as I mentioned, this group of recent graduates creating this project, this company in Uganda. We want students to have the great didactic learning, the creativity, but we want them to do something in the 3, 4, 5 years we have them, combining all this exciting technology and not doing it on our own. The fact is that this pandemic has brought universities, foundations, companies closer. So whether we're developing a world-class engineer in a company, in a technology company, post-education or otherwise, I think the tragedy of this pandemic has reminded us that we're all lifelong learners and we have the opportunity to solidify that in partnership.
Thank you. Sylvia.
Yes, thank you very much for the questions. I think that during this pandemic year, even if we had to adapt and we had to face a lot of different challenges, nevertheless, we were able to look to the future and to prepare what will come next. And we're very active in promoting and working toward new partnerships and collaboration. And I would say here that our reputation as a century-old university, our reputation as a very renowned Sorbonne University Paris helped us consolidate this partnership. And I would like just to strengthen three types of partnership we were able to develop this year. First, and for us, it's really very important because it's at the core of our mission, partnership with national institutions, with the UAE government institution. I will just give one example, which is the National Archives. We are developing very promising programs with National Archives, encompassing general education, continuous education, but also research. And I've learned today that we are incorporating into one of the major, or the major research program in terms of archives and intelligence and artificial intelligence. So with national institutions. Second, with the industries, with the private sector. I already mentioned our private sector, our chairs of excellence, Thales and Total. We're looking forward to opening new chairs of excellence thanks to other sponsors, and we're seeing well on the process. The third one is capitalizing on our reputation as a research institution to strengthen our research network. And well, one of the examples, but that's not the only one, is this international program on archives and AI. And we are very proud to be the partner institution with the National Archives in the MENA region for this global project. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, very quickly, we're running out of time.
Okay, very quickly. I just very quickly want to go back to the previous conversation and just say something in support of what His Excellency the Minister said about needing to integrate the educational system in Fadlu too, right from the beginning, because we shouldn't look at universities in isolation of the entire path. Now, with regard to the present situation, I'd like to express optimism and so on about what happened in the past year and a half, but really honestly, I cannot. I think We've been going through, I mean, we've been thrown off course. The universities have not been doing very well. Teaching hasn't been going on very well. And although, of course, access through the Zoom and so on has opened up, in theory, a lot of pathways to interaction, in fact, I think we have not been able to, people have not been able to make use of them in any tangibly positive way. I believe very much in human interaction. I think it was great when students from abroad used to come and visit our campus, when professors came and participated with our professors in classrooms. I believe it was great when our own professors went abroad and shared the experience of living abroad with other professors. And I think what we went through in this past year, to my mind, as I say, was something that we should try to overcome in the future and not to replicate or repeat or stick to. And we hope COVID will go.
Thank you. Minister, 10 seconds from you, the final comment. You're muted.
We are in UAE now celebrating the 50th year anniversary, and we are working very hard in the plan for the next 50 years to come. We have established an educational data center, and we are working with our higher education institution, all of them, to make policy that is data-driven, to foresee how can we really achieve UAE sanitarian objectives. And also, we are very happy that we are going to be hosting Expo 2020. So all of you are welcome in the UAE to have this pleasant experience of Expo 2020. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to all of you panelists. It's been great. You're all thoughtful, committed, engaged leaders. Thank you.